Tonight on Capitol Journal, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission meets in the State House. We'll have the latest on where medical marijuana stands and speak with Commission Director John McMillan. Major General Sheryl Gordon, Commander of the Alabama National Guard, joins us to discuss preparations for disaster relief and recruiting National Guardsmen. And with COVID-19 hospitalizations again ticking up, Dr. Scott Harris offers an update with the latest you need to know. It's all next on Capitol Journal. From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. This week, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission met for just its second official meeting with the goal of adopting rules and setting and selecting a vendor for tracking medical marijuana. Florida-based Metric, a company that specializes in the medical marijuana industry, was selected to oversee the Commission's seed-to-sale tracking software. Commission member Lori Skelton was the lone vote against selecting the company. She argued that the selection process should have included more identifiable information about companies bidding for the job. Commission staff said they followed long-established state procedures for requests for proposals.
We have no idea who they are or where they came from or what criteria they used to make this recommendation.
So I oversaw the evaluation team. I did make a commitment to those individuals that they would remain anonymous throughout this process. The goal in doing so was to make sure that vendors don't approach them about their decision. Lobbyists, politicians, we had people that are all state employees. They have backgrounds in software architecture and application development, law enforcement, emergency management, agriculture, enforcement and regulation. We tried to pick members who were familiar with these types of software systems and who would be using them. I've been working with the Office of Information Technology, who does multitudes of RFPs. They help other agencies with RFPs, especially regarding software, and they said it's a perfectly common practice for those individuals' names to never be out in the public.
Appreciate that information, but I stand by my position that it is not appropriate for this commission to make decisions based on recommendations of mystery evaluators and industry experts that we know nothing about.
If it has been established that this is the protocol and you have a record of that, then that sort of eased the question. Whether it's a good protocol or bad protocol, that is the protocol. And so rather than changing the protocol, we're going along with the protocol. Is that right?
I'll speak with Commission Director John McMillan later in the show. Well, we might be in the heat of the summer, but before you know it, it will be time for kids to go back to school. That often means parents shopping for clothes and school supplies. But this year presents more challenges with inflation at a 40-year high. The National Retail Federation says consumers could cut back as much as 38% from back-to-school shopping this year. However, there is a sales tax holiday coming up, both for state and many local sales taxes. Nancy Dennis is with the Alabama Retail Association.
Alabama is having its 17th annual back-to-school sales tax holiday. It begins at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, July the 15th, and it goes through midnight on Sunday, July the 17th. And so a lot of items are tax-free that you would use, that you commonly use to go back to school, and that includes clothing that's $100 or less, school supplies that are $50 or less, books that are $30 or less, textbooks that are $50 or less, and then computers and computer equipment that's $750 or less. The state's 4% sales tax is waived throughout the state, and then those 300 localities are also waiving their taxes. And so that savings can be about 10% for some folks. But the way you can find out is you can go to alabamaRetail.org and click on the link for participating cities and counties.
We all see concerning economic news on the national level, but what about here in Alabama? In her recurring series, The Story Behind the Story, Capital Journal's Karen Goldsmith looks into how the state's economy is helping job seekers find work.
Due to inflation and stagnant wages, these statistics show that people have less real disposable personal income.
People are getting poor. What that means is the money you're taking home is buying less.
And attitudes on this wage pain were captured in a recent Bloomberg survey.
71% of the people they interviewed thought we were either in a recession or will be in one in the next 6 months.
And the experts say,
Bloomberg article that I was looking at yesterday, Goldman Sachs economist put the risk of a recession at 30%. Bloomberg economics, their model had it at 38%. These are all within the next year.
But in Alabama, there's some good news. The labor market is strong.
2.7% seasonally adjusted unemployment rate, new record low. Civilian labor force increased by almost 35,000 over last year. New record high number of people working. New record high number of people counted as employed. 61,000 unemployed people, which is almost 20,000 less than what there were a year ago. Wages and salaries have increased by about 20% since 2019.
In the month of May, for example, construction and manufacturing jobs netted an average hourly wage of $28.30. He says that currently Alabama's economy is great. So for those looking for a job, what does that mean?
It's hard to find somebody to come to work. You're having to pay that person more to get that person to work. And it's a good position to be in if you're somebody looking for a job, so you can shop around and figure out, which one fits what you want in your life at the present moment.
For Capital Journal, I'm Karen Goldsmith.
A national report recently ranked states for friendliness toward women-owned businesses. Alabama fell in the bottom 5 with an overall ranking of 48. In the category of women-to-men pay ratio, the state ranked 44th. The Women's Foundation of Alabama has been closely following this issue and recently highlighted pay disparity in its report, Galvanizing the Economic Impact of Women.
And currently, women are just not paid equally for equal work. Women in Alabama earn on average 67 cents for every dollar earned by men. And the numbers are even worse for women of color. Black women earn 63 cents for every dollar earned by white men. Hispanic women earn just 56 cents earned by white men. And this pattern occurs across every level of education and in every occupation.
We have championed and piloted and used our grant-making arm to actually partner with community college to provide wraparound support so that women have every barrier removed so that they can get from that classroom into an in-demand career, whether that's welding, IT, healthcare, all of the above. We've seen women literally go from being on public assistance and 12 weeks later making $60,000 a year as a welder. And so that is the type of transformation that we know can make a difference.
There's encouraging news on the education front. Retirements among Alabama K-12 employees, including teachers, were down this year, at least in part because of a salary bump approved by the legislature. According to the Retirement Systems of Alabama, at least 164 fewer school employees retired this year compared to last year at this point. Nia Scott, legislative counsel for RSA, said many teachers canceled their plans to retire after the pay raise became law. That raise was 4% across the board for teachers and school workers, but there were more significant raises for teachers with many years of experience. Alabama is still experiencing a teacher shortage. In fact, this week, the state school board voted to temporarily lower the minimum passing score on the teaching certification test. The move is meant to get more teachers into the classroom in short order. The change will last for 2 years, and any teachers who are temporarily hired with a lower score will eventually have to pass the certification test to remain in the classroom. Birmingham is on the international stage as it plays host to the World Games. The Games are showcasing athletic competition, but also Alabama's working relationships on a global scale. Capital Journal's Randy Scott reports.
Hi! Switzerland! Thousands have come from around the world to the Magic City to watch the 2022 World Games.
The world is going to see a new Birmingham, not the old black and white TV Birmingham that we used to see, but a Birmingham that's colorful with all walks of life and people coming together to enjoy a global sporting event.
The World Games will bring some of the sharpest athletes on the planet to Birmingham to compete in several sports, but it also does something else. It brings some of the sharpest minds on the planet here to talk about issues facing the world, such as cleaning up the economy, cleaning up the environment, helping people to find jobs. World Games Vice President Jay Robertson says it also creates new partnerships and business ventures between Alabama and other nations.
During the 2 weeks of the Games, we will have meetings with various countries and their leadership regarding industry coming to the state. We're excited that we have over 20 countries that are interested in looking at some type of industry in the state of Alabama.
He adds, creating history and a new economic outlook for Alabama's future.
Working together to sit down with diplomats. We're talking ambassadors. We're talking consul generals from countries all over the world that now have a vested interest in wanting to bring industry into the state of Alabama. What does that mean? That means jobs. That means workforce development. That means opportunity of new industries that we might see fit to go to a Gadsden, Alabama, or to a Mobile, Alabama, to the port.
Showing the state's value on a global scale.
It's exciting to know they see Alabama as a geographical location in the United States that can get to their sources or resources needed to help support their industry.
For Capital Journal, I'm Randy Scott.
We'll be right back with tonight's guests.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Next, I'm joined by Major General Sheryl Gordon, Adjunct General of the Alabama National Guard. General, thanks for coming on Capital Journal.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I was hoping that you could enlighten our viewers about the National Guard. Of course, everybody knows the Guard, everybody sees the Guard in their community, but from an overall statewide point of view, the different divisions and what your job is leading that organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the Alabama National Guard, we're comprised of the Army component and the air component. So I have about 10,000 Army National Guard soldiers and 2,400 Air National Guard soldiers. Most of my Air National Guard are located in Birmingham, Montgomery, and Dothan. As far as my Army National Guard, with 10,000 of them, they're spread throughout communities all over the state of Alabama, and that's probably the ones that people see the most because they're out in the communities, more so than the Air Guard, which are centrally located at their bases. And one of the things that makes the National Guard different from the Air Force Reserve or the Army Reserve or any of the other reserve components is that we are a dual mission, meaning we have the federal warfighting mission, and then we have a state mission that we come out and we support the needs of the citizens of the state of Alabama during times of natural disasters, man-made disasters, declared states of emergency, the hurricanes, tornadoes, ice storms, and things like that. Governor Ivey is the commander-in-chief of the Alabama National Guard, and she appointed me, and I am one of her cabinet members, and I serve at the pleasure of the governor.
And she appointed you 4 or 5 years ago, 2017?
July of 17.
Okay, so you've been leading that ever since. You mentioned disaster relief. I know that's a huge component of what we do, and unfortunately, Alabama has seen a lot over the years, and here we are at the early stages of hurricane season. I assume y'all have had preparations underway?
We have a division in our headquarters called domestic operations and military support. And what we do is that is the section that is designated to work with our our state EMA office to respond to the needs whenever there's a disaster. And the way it works is all disasters are local, so that local person is in charge, whether it's the fire chief, the police chief, or whomever. But they make a request through the state EMA for services. I need this, I need that, I need support manning roads, and the electricity has gone out. Can we get some generators? Can we get this? We deliver the commodities, ice, water, MREs, and that's coordinated through the State Emergency Management Agency. And we work very closely with them. We put liaison officers in their headquarters, and usually in the division headquarters, so we can kind of have eyes on the ground, seeing what's going on, so we can be prepared to answer the call before it comes.
Alabama just has seen devastating hurricanes over the years, tornadoes, flooding, things like that. Have those incidents helped give your team preparation, lessons learned for how to address these things in the future?
It's definitely given us lessons learned about how to address it in the future. We always have what we call after-action reports of everything, any kind of military operation that we do. What did we do well? What do we need to keep doing? What do we not need to do in the future? How can we improve? And then even while we're in the midst of it, we look at how can we make this operation better. So every year we have what we call a hurricane exercise, or a HUREX, and we bring in the agencies that work with us, EMA, some of the power companies, the other state agencies that work with us, and we talk about what we do. FEMA out of Atlanta comes in and meets with us, and we go through everything of, in the event, this is what we will do.
Well, I remember, back during the Riley administration, there's so many of those hurricanes came back to back. There was Ivan, there was Katrina, I think Floyd was right there. Major events right there in like an 18-month window. And one big change was reversing the interstates.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the National Guard playing a big role in, okay, we can figure this out. It seems like, impossible, but you just figure it out, and that's hugely helpful for evacuation, right?
Yes. And we work with the Department of Transportation and ALEA in coordinating that. They're the stakeholders in that, and we provide assistance. We generally are force providers. We put the bodies out there to help on things like that, because those state agencies usually take the lead role in doing those kinds of things, and we just augment their services.
But it's also got to be helpful in terms of just having this trust factor. When I see a National Guardsman there in uniform, we've had the power's out or whatever, we've had a tough time. Doesn't that help with the community, just having that trust level and comfort?
It does. When they see the people in uniform showing up, they know the Guard is there, help is there, and our motto is always ready, always there. And that just reinforces what we do and how we do help the citizens of Alabama, and the support that they give us while we are out there. They've gone through the disaster, we're just there to help, and then they come out, and they want to give us things and take care of us, and it's a very gratifying opportunity for us to help our neighbors.
Switching gears a bit, we talk a lot in this building, the State House, about inflation. Legislature has been talking to agencies about inflation and gas prices, kind of tied in there, and how it's impacting their budgets, their current budgets, and their current spending. Can you tell me, from the Guard's perspective, how inflation and gas prices, I assume y'all use a lot of fuel.
We do.
So how is that impacting your budget decisions?
Well, generally we try to build in some budgetary inflation type guidelines in what we're doing. We've got units that are driving to annual training and all the diesel that it takes. A lot of that is contracted prior to, so we've got some of that locked in. Where we're having a lot of budgetary concerns is in the building materials, because we have several maintenance projects that are going on, renovation projects, some new construction that is going on, and numerous ones of those, and it's not just Alabama, have done what we call busted bid, that initially when the project was submitted, because a military construction project takes about 5 years. You submit it, you tell them this is X amount of dollars that it should cost. Well, in that day and time, that's what it did cost. But with prices going up, we're spending so much more. The contractor saying, oh, well, it's going to cost you this number. And if it's exceeding 50% of what the original bid was, we have to go back and start over. Or we have to pare down the scope of what we were going to do to get it within that budgetary constraint, so we don't get what we originally planned to get with that amount of money. So it's causing us tremendous angst, and causing our accountants to get creative.
Does that mean you can put off projects, or is funding the sort you have to spend it when you got it?
Some of it is you have to spend it when you get it. Some of it requires state matching dollars, and if I don't have state matching dollars, then I don't get the federal money to spend it. So it's a very complicated program that all of us are combating throughout the United States.
I was going to ask you about that, because I assumed there was a split between federal funding and state funding. Is that is there a percentage, or does it fluctuate?
New construction, new federal construction on federal property is 100%. Most of ours are building new armories or renovating. There's a 50-50 split most of the time, and sometimes 75-25 for the state. So like with the construction that's going on with our F-35, that is all federal money that is coming into the state of Alabama that's helping, the economic impact and helping our local economy there.
I was eager to ask about the F-35, because I mean, this is it's been an exciting thing.
Yeah.
The 187th Fighter Wing, famous for being the legacy unit of the Tuskegee Airmen Red Tails, got selected. This was 5-6 years ago, as one of only
5 years ago. This past coming up in December.
Okay, yeah, very nice. I remember it well. Working in D.C. at the time, and one of only 2 Guard units in the whole country selected as an F-35 unit. This is obviously the new war machine of the Air Force. Is there a timeline? When can we expect these jets to arrive?
The first jets are scheduled to arrive in December of 23. So we've got about 18 more months.
It'll be here before you know it.
It'll be here before you know it, and then all the construction that we had to do to prepare for the F-35 with the aircraft maintenance units and the base supply and different things, it takes a while to get that done, to be fully prepared to receive those aircraft. And then also we're starting to divest of the F-16s to make room for that. We are sending our pilots to pilot training so they can already be ready when that first. And I don't know how they're going to determine who gets to fly that first jet, if they're going to have a lottery or some kind of reward system, but that should be interesting. I'm sure the first guy to pilot that will have quite a story to tell. But so the maintainers and everybody are going to the various schools to understand how to work on and take care of the F-35s, because the technology in that is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I guess those of us who live in Montgomery can get used to, it takes some getting used to the new sounds. A little different than an F-16.
Yeah, a little different from the F-16, but as we like to say, it's the sound of freedom.
There you go. Well, while I've got you here, let me ask you about this. How are the ranks of the National Guard? I assume you're always looking for new recruits all throughout the state. How does that process work?
Well, we're always looking for new recruits because we always have people retiring, and so it's a trickle-down effect. And last year, our recruiting battalion was #1 in the nation in the number of recruits and percentage of recruits. They've done an outstanding job, but This year, all the services, active duty and reserve component, are experiencing a downturn in recruiting. We do have bonuses that we can offer, the educational benefits that we can offer in addition to the federal benefits you get when you join the Alabama National Guard, either the Air or the Army. We can help pay for college. We have the Alabama National Guard Educational Assistance Program that will pay toward your tuition.
That seems really interesting. Is there, is that, do you hear from folks that that's a big reason why they join, because they want to get some college tuition paid for?
That's a big reason the parents want them to join.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
But the benefits, one of the things, and depending on what they do in civilian life, a lot of our IT people, they get certifications. The Guard sends them to school for those certifications that if they were in the civilian world, they'd have to pay for it out of their own pocket, or the company would have to pay for it, so they can take those skills. And they get a trade. We have all sorts of things, different skills out there. And it's just a great opportunity. 1 weekend a month, usually, 2 weeks during the year sometimes, maybe more depending on what's going on in your particular unit. But it's a great second paycheck, retirement benefits, health care, and the cost of health care compared to what it is on the open market, it's tremendous savings.
Well, I know you have recruiting offices all throughout the state, but is there a website where folks can go and find more information about the Guard?
There is a 1-800 number.
Okay.
And it's easy, hopefully, 1-800-GO-GUARD.
That's easy enough. Well, before I let you go, I didn't want to forget to touch on this. We're obviously in a volatile world right now. There's an active and prolonged conflict going on in Ukraine. I know that the Alabama National Guard has some partnerships over there in the region. Can you tell me more about that?
We have a partnership with the country of Romania, which is strategically important because it borders Ukraine. And that partnership is what is referred to as the State Partnership Program, and it's only a National Guard program. The active duty does not have this. And all 54 states and territories and districts of the National Guard have a state partner in various parts of the world. Ours was one of the original state partners, and in fact, today is the 29th anniversary of our partnership with Romania. So we have been working with the country of Romania for 29 years, working to help them improve their military skills. And it was initiated when the Soviet bloc fell apart, and a lot of those countries wanted to become members of NATO and learn the U.S. tactics and get away from the Soviet era munitions and equipment and things and tactics and things like that. So we have partnered with them. We helped them bring up their military to the skills that they became a member of NATO. In 2003, they became a member of the European Union in 2007, and we're constantly doing an exchange of personnel with Romania. We had some Romanian soldiers come and train with our chemical soldiers this summer down at Camp Shelby. They are wanting to improve their non-commissioned officer corps, the educational requirements and training that they get. We brought some of their NCO instructors over to our regional training institute to certify them as military instructors, and we've gone back and set in and monitored classes with them to see that they are employing the techniques. They are acquiring the F-16s, and so they are extremely interested in, our tactics, how to maintain. We've sent F-16 pilots and maintainers over there, and they also want to learn how to do the refueling with the F-16s, which is another thing that our Air Guard does, and we sent some over a couple of months, some of our tankers over there to refuel their F-16s with their pilots. And they're just a host of things that we do with the country of Romania, and that they come and do with us. They sent some people over to work with our medical teams during COVID. So It's a 29-year relationship that is extremely strong, and we're very proud of what we're able to do when we partner with the country of Romania.
It was fascinating and probably consequential given Russia's new aggressive stance. So, thank you so much, General, for coming on Capitol Journal and sharing so much about the National Guard.
Well, thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page. You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Next, I'm joined by John McMillan, Director of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. Mr. McMillan, thanks for coming on Capitol Journal.
It's great to be with you, Todd. Appreciate you giving us a chance to visit.
Well, I was hoping that you could bring us up to speed on the cannabis situation. Obviously, the legislature passed this medical marijuana or medical cannabis law. That was last year, correct?
May
2021.
21, right.
Okay, and so that set up the commission, and there are certain things in law, and then there are certain things that y'all have to sort of regulate, adjudicate. Walk us through how we got to this point.
Okay. When the legislation was passed and signed into law by Governor Ivey, I think, and then the appointing authorities made their appointments to the commission, and that's 14 members on the commission, 2 are non-voting. And then they met, I think, initially in July and August, hired us in mid-September, and we really officially got going October the 1st at the beginning of the state's fiscal year. So from then on, we have really been almost buried in getting databases set up for the different aspects of the program, and also the rules and regulations that are going to govern the licensing and all the other processes and procedures involved with license applications of different levels of licenses, all the rules and regulations that apply to each one of those 6 different areas of licensing, and that's where we are now.
So, well, it's pretty complicated. It's not just, people think of medical marijuana as maybe just, okay, there it is, you can buy it or whatever. You're talking about licenses for growing, for transporting, for selling. I mean, I'm probably leaving some out. This is kind of a seed to sale to consumption situation.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually gone well. And we had our meeting today and had a public comment time for addressing any suggestions people had for additions or changes in our rules and regulations draft, which has been turned over now to the legislative services for their publication, and then we are working on that. And then we also passed today a recommendation from the staff for a company to do the seed to sale part of this program, database part of it, software part of it, and we'll start now negotiating with them on the final parts of that, which then has to go to the legislative contract review. So it's kind of out of our hands right now. We're having these timelines with legislative services, legislature, different periods, and then we approve the next round, the final of the draft by August the 11th, we hope. Public comment period will be open until August the 5th. That's a Friday, and the comment period will be open until 5 o'clock on August the 5th. Online with the at our offices.
Mm-hmm. So lots of rules, regulations, checks and balances involved.
Yeah.
So this company, it's responded to the RFP, and y'all have recommended. It's about tracking the seed to sale, like a database for that. Tell me why that's so important when it comes to medical cannabis.
Well, for a number of reasons, but maybe the foremost one is the fact that cannabis is still legally illegal with federal provisions, and Congress is working on that, trying to address it. I don't know what's going to happen, but everything has to be maintained. There's no crossing state lines and all those kind of things, and this is important because each plant, when it becomes viable, is given a number, and that number follows it all the way through the process till it's consumed by a patient.
And we should clarify exactly what we mean, what's going to be available, because again, some people might conjure up images of smoke and things like that. These are actually all what's been approved, was legalized. Is all smokeless, correct?
Alabama does not allow smoking. The legislation, and we should talk about this a little bit. Alabama's legislation is extremely specific. I'm not sure in the time I've been around that I've ever seen any legislation that was so specific, right down to like one gummy is allowed, and the commission can decide the flavor of that gummy. But everything, there's no edibles, no smoking, and a lot of that. And again, I'll refer our viewers to the website, because the legislation itself is on the website. It's in excess of 100 pages, and it's very specific in almost every area. So that's important for people to have a basic understanding if they're that interested.
Also specific as to what conditions medical cannabis can be prescribed to treat.
Right, 16 different illnesses or areas of need for doctors to recommend medical cannabis and the amounts to patients.
Yeah, because I remember back during debate on this, there were lots of passion on both sides, pro and against. And on the pro side, they were telling some, really difficult stories, harrowing stories, really, of people in chronic pain, maybe long-term cancer, things like this, that just maybe conventional medication wasn't really meant to treat, and finally found something that could, in marijuana, something that could help them cope.
Yeah, there's no question, and I didn't know anything about all of this one. I really personally I didn't expect the legislation to actually pass. Then we got interested in it and boned up on it, and I came to believe, and now even more so, that for addressing chronic pain, terminal illnesses, Parkinson's, seizures, PTSD, a number of these things, both mental and physically, that cannabis has a major role in addressing for the benefit of folks that are in great need for it.
What would you say to those who are concerned about this being kind of just the foot in the door? Because you heard a lot of that during the debate, that, hey, well, this is just a foot in the door to full-blown recreational marijuana like they have in Colorado and some other states.
Yeah. I can assure them that neither the commission members, I don't think one of them, or our staff is in favor of addressing, they've called it adult usage now, but it is, just to give you some idea, these are round numbers, but they just within one or two of totally accurate. There are 40 states that have legalized medical cannabis, and 20 that have legalized everything, including adult usage, like your Colorado and California and some of those states.
Okay. Now, during the commission meeting, there was some back and forth about this RFP. Commissioner Skelton had some questions about it in terms of it, the public nature, or lack of public nature of the RFP as it was being considered. You pushed back on some of her criticism. What's going on here?
Well, we followed the traditional protocol that's long been established by state agencies in how we go about evaluating. First, we have an RFP, and then we have companies that are interested in applying for the opportunity to negotiate a contract with us. That's kind of where it all goes. And there's many years of state protocol in how we go about doing this. And for better or worse, we just cannot make all of this information totally public, even to members of the commission. She, as you mentioned, does not agree with that process, but I don't see us changing the process, because at this stage of the game, we're not going to try to teach the state how to do something all over again. That's long been the process and the protocol for how these contracts are done. For example, the approval we did today was not a final contract. It authorized the staff to negotiate with this company for the contract, which then goes before legislative contract review. So there are other steps. Not to say that any of us are going to change our opinion about it, but the point is, for the protection of those companies, we promised them on the front end they'd be anonymous, as we did the evaluators, who are absolutely beyond reproach. So we're extremely comfortable and defensive about our process and the way it was handled, and it's just the next step in moving forward with implementing this agency and this program.
Now, I would imagine when it comes to medical marijuana, because so many other states have been in this years before, maybe even a decade or more.
30 years probably.
Really?
In the early 90s, I think Washington and California and Colorado, those were the kind of the first states.
So really this has become an industry, and I would imagine that a lot of companies specialize in this, specialize in growing, specialize in distribution and things like that. So is that what you expect to see, are companies that have kind of been around for a while in other states, or do you expect, because I know that there was discussion during the legislation and intent in the law at trying to have as many state-based companies involved, but there may not be any Alabama-based marijuana distributors?
Yeah. There are a few Alabama companies we are aware of that intend to be solely Alabama companies. There are others where there are going to be different arrangements made between them, but we do keep a priority. For example, there are 5 of the integrated license, which is the big license, and at least one of those 5 has to be a minority. So, and that's in the legislation. So, and that's the case with the other license areas as well, is that 20-25% minority application. So that alone should address somewhat the issue of Alabamians, but not solely, because they're companies that Indians or other minorities have, whether it's black or Indians or Asians or whatever, that are going to be involved in this, as they have, as you said, everywhere else.
Is there a timeline for when these products you could expect to have prescriptions, have actual use of medical cannabis?
Yeah. If everything goes well, we should be able to start issuing license, the full license, actually saying you have a license, go get it done. But there are things like, or the companies that have licenses, they're going to have to go out and try to hire contractors and build facilities. What's going to happen with this supply chain business? It's such an issue right now. All of those things, but best case, probably late 23 before there'll be products available, which will be sold only through dispensaries, and that's another license category. So there's a lot to do, a lot of inspections, a lot of oversight from every area. The commission is good. The Board of Medical Examiners and the Alabama Medical Association, which is responsible for the doctor's certification and education, is gone great. Department of Agriculture and the Industries is over the cultivator side of it. That's gone great. Revenue's over the tax collection. ALEA's over the law enforcement and security. So all of these state agencies, I think there's a point that needs to be made. This is a brand new agency, and I think all of these other agencies in state government that are working with us so well, I might add, are happy to have a role in helping to create something that's going to be worthwhile, safe, secure, and beneficial to the patients in this state that need the cannabis medication.
Well, I can't help but ask you. You've been in state politics a while, including most recent. You were Commissioner of Agriculture for 8 years. You were state treasurer for how many? 6 years.
No, just one. Just most of one term.
Okay, yeah. But left that role to take this one at the Cannabis Commission. Why? What did you see in this role that made you want to go from statewide elected position to this staff agency director position?
Yeah, well, we were, as I said earlier, we did a lot of research and became convinced that this was a worthwhile thing. And I was encouraged, frankly, by a number of legislators and other folks in state government to take a look at this because, I've had some success. Whatever success I've had in state government, and I think I have had some, has been because I have, I think, a unique ability to surround myself with the folks that get the job done. And that's leadership role is my forte, I guess you might say. And one of the only reasons I was willing to undertake this was because Daniel Autry and Brittany Peters and Cindy Wright were willing to leave Treasury with me and come take this on. And we all just, I think I speak for all of us when I say we just really went for something that we thought was beneficial, but also the challenge of starting a new state agency. That doesn't happen very often, and you don't have the opportunity to participate in something like that too often.
No, it doesn't. And it's really fascinating to watch today's meeting. We'll be asking you to come back on to provide updates as this is an evolving situation.
Well, thank you so much, and we welcome that with any of you viewers. If we'd like the opportunity to come visit with folks at civic clubs, whatever kind of meetings, because now we are at a point after getting the databases and the rules and regulations kind of under control that we can talk more about what we see the future holds for this agency and the good that's going to come from it for folks. And I've got so many personal friends with Parkinson's and other things that really do need this benefit.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks again for coming on Capitol Journal.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capitol Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capitol Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capitol Journal podcasts.
Next, I'm joined by Dr. Scott Harris, Public Health Officer for the state of Alabama. Doc, thanks for coming on Capitol Journal.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I wanted to have you on because we are experiencing a bit of an uptick in COVID-19. More people are testing positive. There have been more cases, more hospitalizations. What can you tell us about the latest?
Yeah, we are seeing some numbers increase around the state. I know no one's really interested in hearing about COVID, but it's still there with us. It's still an issue. At the very end of May, last week or so of May, we had less than 100 patients combined in hospitals with COVID around the whole state of Alabama. And now, here we are in the middle of July. We've got over 650 patients in the hospital. Probably when the pending cases are investigated, probably over 700 people being admitted right now to Alabama hospitals. So that's quite significant. Alabama hospitals are going to have a difficult time handling those numbers they had to handle last summer when we had the big Delta wave. Their staffing's not quite what it was, and so I'm not sure they could handle 3,000 patients, which was, I think, the highest number we got to last year. But one thing that we're fortunate to see is that we aren't seeing the same number of deaths following those hospitalizations. For the first year and a half of the pandemic, if we got 100 cases today, we knew in 2 or 3 weeks, 1 or 2 of those people were not going to survive. It was just a 1 or 2% mortality rate. It was really consistent for most of the pandemic. But now that we have vaccines, now that we have monoclonal antibodies that are effective, now that we have oral medications that are effective, and because the variant strain itself is a little less deadly on average, we're seeing that decoupling, if you will, from the case numbers and the numbers of deaths. So that is one fortunate thing.
Well, that does seem encouraging. And let me ask you, because of that information, fewer deaths, hospitalizations going up, but fewer people dying. Should that give people more, freedom, flexibility to operate in their daily lives without worrying with every living breath about COVID-19?
Yeah, I think so. Although, if you're somebody who's medically vulnerable, because of your age or because of health problems, and particularly if you're unvaccinated, I don't think the situation's changed that much, for those folks. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of those category of folks in Alabama. We still have, about half our state that hasn't decided to get vaccinated. So for people who are fully vaccinated, I think you can pretty much do what you need to do. If your community is seeing high numbers, a lot of transmission going on, then obviously you need to, exercise caution. Be careful about large groups of people, especially if you don't know the vaccination status of people there. There are some times when wearing masks makes a lot of sense, for some people. We have that information updated every week on our website, showing what your county's level is, whether it's red or orange or yellow or green. So we encourage people to follow those maps to make decisions about what's going on around them. And for most of us, if you're otherwise healthy and fully vaccinated, you can live your life pretty much like you want.
And what's the latest with vaccines? I've been hearing about newer vaccines that are updated for the current variants.
Yeah, that's right. The virus is always smarter than we are, and so it's been evolving all this time. It's showing more of what we call immune escape. That is, the virus that's circulating now isn't protected against by the vaccine as well as those original strains of the virus we had when the vaccine first came out. And so, if you think about it, the vaccine we have now, which came out in December of 2020, is really targeted at a virus that we don't even really have right now. The virus is mutated and gone on to, onward and upward. And so now the vaccines still protect very well, even with these current strains, against serious illness and against death. So people absolutely need to get them. But we know at some point the vaccines are probably not going to work because the virus is just going to keep on mutating and changing. So by the fall, as you mentioned, we are going to likely see new strains of vaccine, new strains of virus, but we're going to see new types of vaccines. Probably the first thing we're going to see is a two-component vaccine that still has effectiveness against those original strains and the ones we've been through, but also targets specific strains of Omicron, which are the subvariants that are most common right now.
Switching gears real quick, monkeypox. This is a term we keep hearing about, a disease we keep hearing about. I understand that there's now a positive case in Alabama. What do we need to know about monkeypox as it concerns public health?
Yeah, monkeypox is kind of interesting. For most of us, it's just one of these theoretical things you learn about in school or you take on a test, but you rarely ever see one. But we do have cases now around the world. This disease has traditionally been confined to Africa, and it was called monkeypox because it first got identified in a group of monkeys, that had it. They were actually test subjects, in a research facility and had an outbreak of this disease. It looks a little bit like chickenpox or smallpox, and it's actually in the same family as smallpox. Most of us don't remember smallpox either. Some people like my age, got smallpox vaccines and you have a scar on your shoulder. But that vaccine even stopped being widely used, by the end of the 1970s. So smallpox was a terrible disease, and had a real high mortality rate. Monkeypox causes similar illnesses with a rash, with flu-like symptoms, with fever and aches and headache. In some rare cases, there are deaths, although with this current monkeypox outbreak, we aren't seeing deaths. The best information we had prior to this from Africa showed that it had a pretty significant mortality rate, although that probably is because we only knew about the most serious cases, and there were probably a lot of cases that weren't reported because they just weren't serious. But right now in the world, there's monkeypox just about everywhere. We've got around 1,500 cases in the United States. Almost every state has reported cases of monkeypox, and it's a significant problem because people do get really sick. They are able to transmit this to other people, although not easily transmit it, but they are able to transmit it to other people. And so it's just another issue that we now have to worry about. And again, sounds familiar, but particularly if you're immune compromised, people that have immune system problems can get really, really sick from this.
Well, I don't want to embarrass you, but I have to point out to our viewers that you have been named Person of the Year by the Alabama Broadcasters Association. They have their meeting coming up here in August. So I want to say congratulations on that, and well deserved.
Well, thank you very much. I was very honored by that. I really did appreciate that. But I told them and will tell you today, I'm happy to accept that on behalf of all the people who work in public health. It's not just me, and it shouldn't just recognize me, but we've had a lot of really remarkable men and women who've been working really hard for a long time on protecting Alabamians, and so on their behalf, I'm happy to accept it.
Well, yes, and well said, but you're the leader, and you've taken some slings and arrows in the last 2 years. And that's not easy to do. But you've also been such a consistent guest here on Capital Journal. We really appreciate it. I hear from viewers all the time that really appreciate your consistent updates. It's a good feeling to know that the top dot is keeping us safe and keeping us informed. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Todd.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page.
Chiha Mountain, often called Mount Chiha, is the highest natural point in Alabama at 2,407 feet above sea level. It is located in north-central Alabama in Chiha State Park, surrounded by the Talladega National Forest in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. This dramatic landscape gets its name from the Creek Indian name for the mountain, Chaha, meaning high place.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next Friday night at 7:30 right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.